Jannik Sinner looked finished. Not metaphorically, physically. The world number one was bending over between points, struggling to catch his breath, calling for the medical team, and suddenly the entire atmosphere inside Rome changed completely. Because for the first time in weeks, maybe even months, fans watching on Campo Centrale started asking the same shocking question. Is Jannik Sinner finally vulnerable? And just when Daniil Medvedev seemed ready to completely flip the match upside down, the rain came. Now the entire tennis world is stuck waiting for one of the strangest and most dramatic endings of the 2026 season. Because this semi-final against Medvedev has suddenly become much bigger than just a place in the Italian Open final, it now feels like a stress test for the entire Sinner era. Can the hottest player in tennis survive when things finally stop going perfectly? At first it looked like the answer would be easy, because Sinner opened this semi-final playing almost flawless tennis. Honestly, for stretches of that first set, it looked unfair. The serving was clinical, the baseline hitting was terrifyingly clean, and Medvedev looked trapped immediately. The crowd in Rome could feel it too. Every winner felt louder. Every point felt inevitable. Sinner was moving like a player completely in control of the moment, and Medvedev honestly looked overwhelmed by the pace and precision coming at him from the other side of the net. This is what has made Sinner so frightening lately. He doesn't just beat opponents, he slowly removes their belief. And during that first set, it felt like another routine chapter in what's becoming one of the most dominant stretches in modern ATP history. 32 straight Masters, 1,000 wins entering the match. No losses since February. Every tournament turning into another showcase of why he's currently the best player in the world. Then suddenly, everything changed. And it changed fast. The first warning signs were subtle. Sinner's energy between points dropped slightly. His movement looked heavier. The explosive intensity that defined the opening set started fading little by little. Medvedev noticed immediately. That's what elite veterans do. The Russian began extending rallies more carefully, forcing Sinner to hit extra shots, making him work physically for every game. And slowly, the rhythm of the match became uncomfortable for the Italian. This is where Medvedev becomes so dangerous psychologically. He senses vulnerability faster than almost anyone on tour. And once he senses it, he drags matches into chaos. That's exactly what happened in the second set. Suddenly, Sinner wasn't controlling points as cleanly anymore. The easy aggression disappeared. The body language became tense. There were moments where he bent over after rallies, trying desperately to recover physically before the next point began. The crowd could see it. Medvedev could definitely see it. And for the first time in a long time, Sinner looked human. That's what made this so fascinating emotionally. Because most players facing Sinner recently have looked mentally defeated before the match even reaches difficult territory. The aura around him has become enormous. Opponents often start forcing shots too early because they feel pressure building instantly. But Medvedev stayed patient, even after losing the opening set badly. That patience nearly changed the entire semi-final. The second set became messy, physical, and emotionally exhausting. Sinner still had moments where he looked ready to escape. There were flashes of brilliance, quick accelerations, huge forehands, the usual shot-making magic. But physically something looked wrong, and Medvedev kept increasing pressure. The rallies grew longer, the points became uglier, the match stopped looking like smooth attacking tennis and started feeling like survival. That environment favors Medvedev, always, because chaos is where his tactical instincts become elite. He starts changing pace, extending points awkwardly, forcing opponents to question themselves mentally. Eventually, the pressure cracked the set open. Medvedev stole it 7-5. And honestly, that scoreline barely captured how dramatic the momentum swing felt in real time. Suddenly, the entire stadium became nervous. Not silent, nervous, because everyone in Rome understands what this tournament means for Sinner. This isn't just another Masters event anymore. It's history. If he wins Rome, he joins Novak Djokovic as the only man ever to complete the career Golden Masters by winning all 9 ATP Masters 1000 tournaments. That is legendary territory. And for a moment it looked like the dream might collapse in front of his home crowd. Then came the most shocking part of the night. Sinner called for the medical team. Cramps. Immediately panic spread online. Fans started wondering whether the brutal schedule was finally catching up to him. Commentators questioned whether his incredible winning streak had physically drained him. Social media exploded with theories about exhaustion, pressure, and possible injury concerns before Roland Garros. Because the timing felt terrifying. You don't usually see the world number one physically struggling this visibly during a massive semi-final at home, especially not a player who has looked almost superhuman for months. And honestly, Medvedev probably sensed opportunity too. This was the exact type of situation where experienced players smell blood. One more physical dip from Sinner, one more emotional lapse, and suddenly the entire match could flip completely. But then Sinner did something champions always seem to do. He responded instantly. That's what separates the truly elite from everyone else. Instead of collapsing mentally after the medical timeout, Sinner came out firing in the third set. The intensity returned. The legs suddenly looked lighter. The aggression came back. And the crowd absolutely exploded when he secured the early break. It felt like emotional whiplash. One moment he looked exhausted. The next moment he looked unstoppable again. That emotional swing tells you everything about why Sinner has become the most dangerous player in men's tennis right now. Even when conditions become chaotic, even when his body looks vulnerable, he still finds ways to regain control mentally. That's championship behavior. And Medvedev knew it. You could almost feel the frustration building because the Russian had worked so hard to drag Sinner into uncomfortable territory only to watch him suddenly recover momentum again. Then the rain arrived. Heavy, relentless, and suddenly one of the biggest matches of the season just stopped. Honestly, the timing could not have been more dramatic. Sinner leading 6-2, 5-7, 4-2. 2 games away from the final, crowd fully energized. Momentum swinging back toward the Italian. Then everything frozen overnight. That changes the psychology massively. Now both players must sleep on it. Think about that. Sinner has to spend the night protecting a lead while wondering how his body will feel tomorrow. Medvedev has to sit with the frustration of losing momentum while also convincing himself the comeback is still possible. That emotional reset matters, especially in a rivalry this complicated, because even though Sinner has dominated most recent meetings against Medvedev, the Russian remains one of the few players intelligent enough to consistently create uncomfortable tactical situations for him. And now he gets extra time to think, extra time to adjust, extra time to prepare for whatever physical version of Sinner returns to the court tomorrow. That uncertainty is dangerous. Now let's talk about the bigger picture because this match may have revealed something important about Sinner's current dominance. He's not invincible. That sounds obvious, but recent months almost made people forget it. The scary thing about Sinner's rise has been how clean everything looked. The serving, the movement, the shot selection, the emotional control. Opponents rarely managed to drag him into messy situations. Medvedev finally did, and the match instantly became complicated. That's significant heading into Roland Garros because clay court tennis punishes physical weakness harder than almost any other surface. Long rallies, extended matches, emotional battles deep into tournaments. If Sinner's body starts showing signs of fatigue during these moments, suddenly the French Open becomes much more unpredictable. But here's the scary part for the rest of the ATP Tour. Even while struggling physically, Sinner still looked capable of winning. That's terrifying. Because great champions eventually reach a point where they no longer need perfect conditions to dominate. They figure out how to survive ugly matches too. This semi-final may actually prove Sinner is entering that stage of his career, the stage where adversity no longer destroys him emotionally. Instead, it sharpens him. That's exactly what made players like Djokovic so dangerous for so many years. They could look vulnerable for stretches and still somehow finish matches stronger than everyone else. Sinner is beginning to show similar traits, and now waiting in the final is Casper Ruud. That matchup alone feels fascinating because Ruud has quietly built one of the strongest clay court resumes of this generation. He understands patience on dirt better than almost anyone. His forehand becomes heavier on clay. His movement is elite, and emotionally he's one of the calmest competitors in tennis. But before fans start dreaming about that final, Sinner still has unfinished business against Medvedev. And honestly, the overnight delay could create complete chaos. What if Sinner wakes up physically tight? What if Medvedev comes out ultra aggressive immediately? What if the crowd pressure suddenly becomes overwhelming because everyone expects Sinner to close it out quickly? These details matter, especially in suspended matches where momentum gets interrupted unnaturally. And Medvedev is exactly the type of player capable of exploiting emotional weirdness after delays. Still, one thing feels impossible to ignore after watching this semi-final. Sinner's mentality has evolved dramatically. Old versions of Sinner might have collapsed once the cramps started and the second set disappeared. Younger players often spiral emotionally in moments like that. This version didn't. Even physically struggling, he kept searching for solutions. That resilience is becoming one of his greatest weapons. And honestly, it might be the reason this generation of players is starting to fear him differently now. Not just because of the power, not just because of the consistency, because of the emotional stability. That's what creates dynasties in tennis. Now the entire sport waits for Saturday. Rome waits, Medvedev waits, and Sinner waits, just 2 games away from another final, another historic milestone, and another chance to tighten his grip on men's tennis before Roland Garros begins. But after everything we just witnessed, one question suddenly feels impossible to ignore. Did Daniil Medvedev expose the first real signs of vulnerability in Jannik Sinner's dominance? Or did Sinner just prove he can survive even when his body and momentum completely turn against him? Because the answer to that question might decide not only Rome, but the entire direction of the 2026 clay season. Tennis IQ is where we break down the pressure, rivalries, and hidden psychological battles shaping modern tennis. And trust me, this Sinner story is becoming bigger than anyone expected.